Hi, Taylor.
Hello.
Welcome to the Jewellery Pod.
Thank you so much for having me.
I was planning this since so long. So I know that you're not directly related to jewelry, but you're doing some amazing work in this field.
Thank you.
And before we jump onto this, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell everyone that what you do.
Sure. So I am an emotional intelligence and etiquette expert and advisor. I advise in countries actually all over the world, so in 22 different countries, primarily here in the UAE and also in India mainly. I have an office here and an office in India. India, I mainly focus in education, so emotional intelligence in the education field. But here in the UAE, I work across in industries, as you mentioned before, a little bit in the jewelry industry, but really in every industry here in the UAE. What I try to do is I take the concepts of emotional intelligence, which is really self-awareness and mindset, emotional regulation, empathy, things of this nature, consciousness. And I incorporate that with etiquette, which is the behavioral part. So if you think about it, it's mindset through the emotional intelligence, and then it's behavior through the etiquette, and then communication skills, and then image skills. So image is not just how you're dressing, although that is a very important part, as I can very much see the way you're so smartly dressed today that you understand the importance of it. But it's not just that, it's how we hold ourselves, it's how we come across it. A lot of that is all intertwined with our emotional intelligence and our mindset. So I coach in all these areas, whether it's somebody that has consciousness issues when they're self-conscious, for example, confidence issues, they have communications issues, maybe it's teamwork issues or empathy issues, or just etiquette issues. So how to be more professional in the workplace, how to speak more eloquently, how to communicate what they're trying to communicate better, things of this nature. So I coach individually as well as offering workshops for groups and also private workshops for organizations.
Amazing.
Thank you.
You're taking care of really big part of etiquette coaching. However, today I'm just picking a very small part of it. I want to discuss it particularly in respect with the jewelry industry. And when I say jewelry industry, I'm not talking about like already established brands. I'm not talking about Tiffany's and the Graphs.
Yes.
I'm talking about our own next door brands that are ruling the market in GCC.
Yes.
And how transformational it could be if they undergo such kind of training, which I'm sure, because every organization I do know always give sales training to their staff. They also give product training on seasonal basis and as per the product launch. But I do feel somewhere it could be a very unpopular opinion that soft skills specifically are not that much weighed in any organization. And we want to talk about it today.
Okay, of course. Well, I'm very happy to talk about it. It's incredibly important in any industry. It's incredibly important because our industry and what the value within any industry, within any company, if it's small, if it's homegrown and very small, or if it's a leader, like you mentioned, like Graf, for example, or Tiffany's, it's really irrelevant because the value is the people. The people are the value. So it's been proven that those companies that invest in their employees, and not just investing in typical trainings, but investing in which, for example, emotional intelligence training, that's a very big and important one. It's a hot topic right now, but it's actually, it's fundamental for the development of the client, especially in sales, which I would love to talk about a little bit more. Same thing with etiquette training. So etiquette, I think, gets a little confused in a business context because we think it's just table manners, which it can be. And I have given professional table manners courses for the jewelry industry, actually. Oh. So for the very high-end managers for clients, for example, people that are dealing with a relationship management, for example, with the clients, because they're often eating with their clients. And so they need to know the rules of etiquette, at least the international rules. That's a very interesting topic, too, because Dubai, since we're such a mix of cultures here, there's no right or wrong etiquette. It's just become from different backgrounds. And so to kind of get that neutral, if you will, international level, I've done some coaching like this. But sometimes they think that etiquette is just the table manners or just being polite, for example. But it really goes much more beyond that on how do you present yourself? How can you be more professional? How can you shift that mindset? In fact, every coaching I've ever given, we always start with the mindset. And why is it so important? And so if you can get the shift in mindset, if you can train your staff, I think it's like a 21% increase in return on your investment. So the investment, whatever it is that you are doing to invest in your staff, it's 21% increase in the return from whatever amount that you actually invested. And then also it's been found that employees feel the retention rate issue. So we have a lot of turnover. In many industries, you have a lot of turnover. If you have issues with turnover, this is a huge way to address the issues is by giving them training. They feel, because why? They feel seen. they feel invested in. They show that you are people-centric, and that creates a mindset, a culture within your company. And so that's why I think it's so important to invest in training, specifically soft skills, because human beings, and those softer skills are what you really need in the sales, for example, when it comes to jewelry, and those people that are interacting with the client face to face. It's the subtlety, it's the softness, it's the awareness, and it's also the skills of etiquette, which are the main pillars, which are being considerate of others, respectful, and honest. So consideration, if you break it down a little bit more, and this is where emotional intelligence comes very strong into it, it's you become very aware of self, so how you are behaving. What are your triggers, for example? What is your body language giving off? What is your face saying? Because you may be speaking a certain way, but what is your face saying? How are you communicating to that client? Are you approaching the client with any bias? We think bias, it has a pretty very heavy negative connotation, but it could be a positive bias, but it's not founded. So for example, if you are Indian, for example, or if as an American, I'm American, and I see another American come in, and I know it by this way that they're speaking English, for example, which again, may be a mistake to make that assumption. But if I see and I think that they're going to behave in a certain way, it could be positive, but then it's not good to make that assumption. So it's the bias that we're coming in with versus walking in with consideration of another human being is coming here. I'm going to meet them where they are. I'm going to tell them a story about the jewelry. I'm going to create an experience for them. I'm going to engage them. I'm going to listen to them. Active listening skills. Really understand what they're asking for and looking for, and be very aware of my place in this. Like, how am I reacting to them? How am I behaving around them? Am I being gracious? How are the words I'm using? How am I speaking? This kind of small change can make a huge importance in not just making a sale, but in creating a relationship, which is really what you need in the luxury industry. Even if you're a small jeweler, even if you have one store and you've just started, you want a relationship with your clients, because not only for that person to come back over time, which jewelry is something that often is the case, right? You have a family jeweler, right? So you come back because a baby is born, for example, or a wedding or whatever it is, and they immediately think of you, and so you have a client for life. But also it's referral within their network as well. So it's the two things that you're creating relationships. So I think this is why it's so important to have etiquette and soft skills training, because those people that are dealing with human beings, it makes a huge difference in the way in which you're creating that relationship, which therefore impacts sales, which therefore impacts the whole culture, everything within the industry and within that company.
What I love that you focus a lot on this fact that it's not just the jewelry or the collection or the sales tactics that help any organization to grow the revenue, but just by working on soft skills could result in 20%. And 20% is a lot, because I have worked with several companies. And if you are giving growth of 20% to any given company over the year on the business, it counts a lot.
Yes.
So I need to know one thing, that having a conversation about it is one thing, but for our listeners, if we can simplify it further by giving an example where you actually worked on or coached a company.
Yes.
And over the time, they sent you a feedback, or you observed a dramatic change in the results.
Yes. So I've worked for a very large company here. I've given, I'll leave the client's name out of it because of confidentialities.
100%.
But I will say that I worked with a large jewelry company here in the UAE and the Middle East. And I've given emotional intelligence coaching as well as etiquette coaching. So the etiquette coaching I referred to is where I was working on table manners. It's more about the business lunch or dinner, which is not just the act of eating, it's everything that comes with it. It's conversation, it's approach, it's mindset, it's a lot of things. But then I also did the emotional intelligence coaching for all of their sales staff. So there were, I think, 250, 300 people at this, and they were online, they were in person, etc. And I received a lot of feedback about awareness. So the biggest thing about any kind of coaching is bringing people to the awareness of, you can give people as much information as they would like, and some of it will retain, but most of it, unless they have some awareness of need within self or connection to the information that they're learning, and then therefore make it applicable or make it resonate, then there will not necessarily be an impactful shift based upon that information or on that training. So as a trainer and as a coach, I'm always trying to get to the client to be emotionally aware, but awareness of what's going on within them and how they can then therefore learn from that, take it forward, and then implement a skill. So that's why I always work on mindset first, because it's the awareness first and then the skills. The skills are actually really easy. The skills are things that I think, and I have to say, I mean, I work a lot in India. So I have to say, it's that culture in particular, they have a lot of these skills. It's very much woven into the religion, the culture, the histories, the tradition, a lot of, especially for sales, especially in entrepreneurship in particular. And you'll see it woven in there. So it's not that it's not there. And as a coach, I firmly believe that we all have this full ability to do and to achieve what we want to achieve. We just have to bring it out. And that's what the awareness is. So with this company in particular, the feedback that I received is approaching it where I said we have to approach that you are not making sales, that this is not, you're not selling something. You are creating an experience, but not just creating an experience. You're trying to create a connection with that client for creating relationship, not for selling something. What you have, and they have wonderful pieces that differentiate, but then again, this is a gold necklace, and this is also a gold necklace that you can get somewhere else without the brand markup. So then why, besides the brand itself, do you want to have the brand? Well, it's not just because you want to show off, because not everyone is like that. And in this day, with all the access to information, all the price comparison, everything else, you have to basically differentiate yourself differently. And it's the feeling that they have, that the client has when you come in, and the experience that you have, that you don't want to go anywhere else. It doesn't even enter into your mind because of that relationship. So I said, forget about sales. You're not selling anything here. You're creating an experience. You're telling a story, and you're building relationships. So we're going to take a step back. What are our barriers to doing that? Our barriers to doing that are within ourselves first. Again, I mentioned bias. Here, our countries, for example, my daughter's school, there's like 91 nationalities, which is fabulous. And I could not tell you how happy I am about that. But imagine, you don't know, we have so many different nationalities coming in. We have, as human beings, natural to create bias, because it's the way in which it's a survival instinct, to be very honest. It's like we identify in order to classify, in order to process, and in the past when we were in not such a civilized and emotionally aware situation, to survive. So this is the reason why. When a client comes in from a certain nationality or what you think a certain way, be very wary of the bias. And so this is one thing we really focused on, is because you think it may be serving you because it's a positive bias, but it may not be. So be very aware of your bias and how that bias impacts your communication, your behavior, and everything else. It should be always about, this is a client, like as if you're welcoming them to your home. This is your home, you're welcoming the client. Anybody coming in your home, and the Arab community in particular and the Indian community are very welcoming that way. Somebody comes into their home and it's like, doesn't matter anything. They're very welcome, very heavily fed also, and welcome. It should be the same. So this is one thing I taught them, is about being very conscious of bias, taking the emotional intelligence awareness of, and then when you're approaching it, the second is listening. So we should be listening much more than we're speaking. So we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should use them in that proportion, right? Because this is what God gave us, the 2 ears and 1 mouth. So it's really about listening, and not just listening, again, with all that bias, with the objective of sales in your mind, clear, where listen to what the client is saying. And I mean, we can get into conflict negotiation because that also is something else. But let's just say it's not a conflict. It's just they're interested in something. Observe their body language. Observe their behavior. If they seem like by you approaching them that they are a little standoffish, give them the space. Just don't be, the concept of being pressure, you have to gauge it. You know, it's a balance. It's not just, and all of that will come very naturally if we develop our awareness, our self-awareness, our awareness of our behavior, and really listening and paying attention to the client, listening to the words, what they're saying, and then also their body language. So those are the things that I taught in very heavily. There's also the concept of building relationships and getting through conflict and things of that nature. But the feedback that I received is developing that self-awareness is something that people, again, very heavy in a lot of cultures, but putting words to it, literally bringing the space for it and saying, okay, maybe this is something we should think about. That was something that was for a lot of them new, and they implemented many of the skills and the tools. And I know also because luckily I have a little bit of information on how the company's doing, and I know that they continue to keep on growing. In fact, they exceeded their business from the previous year 30%. 30 or 40% from the year previous. So
that's tremendous.
It's a huge amount. I cannot say that I'm going to claim total responsibility for that, because that would be ridiculous. But because it's really the leadership. They've taken a lot of focus on conscious leadership, on investing in their teams, on the people, on investing in their trainings, and a total shift of the way the brand is presented in the market. But I would like to say that I'm one very small part of that, I hope, because of them deciding to invest in their people.
You're very humble to say that. This is my personal experience that I always focused on never boring my client. But I always did B2B sales, never on the B2C front. But I do understand before going to my client that they are meeting 10 other suppliers like me throughout the day. And unless I'm unique or connecting with them, or at least if I don't have a relationship with them, probably they won't entertain me because they're meeting 10 suppliers a day. I ensure that I always go with something unique or something of their interest, which could be they could be launching in next quarter, or at least another funny approach of mine was if I'm meeting them 5 times a month, 2 times it used to be business, 3 times it used to be not business.
Yes.
Is that a correct approach?
I think I would say, I mean, the numbers exact percentage, I couldn't possibly. The concept, of course, it would differ. And also it probably differed within your clients itself. I mean, maybe some you were like, okay, maybe twice a month it's social or non-context to business, and the other ones were more business. Because I think, again, you feel that out. It's like any relationship we build. The most important thing in life is to, in my opinion, besides, your family, the love of God, everything else, all those things. But when it comes to anything, personal or professional, it's all about relationship building. That's all what this is. Sales, not sales, it really doesn't matter. Unless you are working with a computer all the time only, which there are professions like this. But if you're working with any other human being, your success, your happiness, your growth comes from your ability to build relationships. That's the relationship with self first, of anything else. So awareness of self, investment in self. And I don't mean necessarily, I say investment in self, and that people get very triggered with that this is in some way selfish. But no, it's not selfish. It's for the betterment of family, for your growth, for everything else. But for example, studying, development through trainings, learning, being curious, all these things. So develop self first, your relationship with self, your awareness of self, and then any relationship with anybody else. So in that case, you're building relationships with your clients, which is incredibly important. And I do think it is a mix. It's never just professional. Right. It's always a mix. The best relationships are through building socially as well as professionally.
It used to be also weighed by the value. I ensure that they should not regret spending half an hour with me.
Yes.
Over here, I'm talking about how we draw a fine line between being a selly person, a sounding selly.
Yes.
At the same time, we are developing a relationship because it's really underrated. Nobody talks about it. As we are speaking about this topic, it's mandatory to build an awareness around this, that definitely you need to close that sale, but not at the level, at the cost of discomfort of the buyer.
I don't think, unless you're in an environment where it's very clearly the case. So for example, like I will say any souk in the world. So for example, in the souks here, which I absolutely love, or the ones in Turkey, for example, the bazaar, amazing. Anywhere in Italy, they have for leather goods. I mean, they have everywhere in the world. In every place they have. We have in the United States, we have something equivalent as well. When the client goes into that, their expectations are, this is going to be very much where people are approaching me in a very salesy manner, because that's the nature of where they're going. So unless you're in that environment, most people do not prefer that salesy kind of approach. It's unless I do know 2 people in my very close personal life that love to bargain. My husband being one of them. He adores it. It's like one of his favorite. He loves it. It's like a challenge. And I also have a colleague of mine who is phenomenal at it as well. But otherwise, most people don't love that feeling of it being really salesy. Instead, they want to have information. They want to feel like human beings. They want to feel heard. They want to feel that they've been listened to, that they've been understood, and that they are valued, which is something you just spoke about, that you gave value in your time. So the approach, and the biggest tip I can give you about not sounding salesy is listen. Just listen. Like when somebody comes in, greet them, read their body language. If they seem like they would like some space, just say, if you have any questions, please, I'm here, and then please be readily available. That's the other thing. There's A and then there's B with that. The B is that oftentimes when people do this, which is fantastic, then they just disappear. And then when the person actually has a question, then they lose it, and then potentially you lose a sale. But if you start listening to the client when they're asking questions and you start talking about it, now if you start to see their eyes gloss over, or you start to get the body language that they're a little bit uncomfortable about something, then go a little bit less on the information and give them the space. Just And also talk about creating a story. Story is really important. I mean, we hear about this in sales, but it's not just about it's not just towards the end of selling something. It's because you really firmly believe in this story, that you are passionate about what you're doing. And this is another coaching session that I've given, and I've given actually this training session for a lot of service industries. You're not there to just do a job. This is, and it's not necessarily in the construct of a career. This is an extension of who you are. This is when we talk about this as personal brand development. Also, I call it identity development because I think it's a whole step further. I think personal branding is very much exterior of self, how you present self outside. You should know your values when you're going through that. But I think identity there's a spiritual side to identity. There's there's a lot more depth to how you identify yourself and how then you want the world to identify with you and to see you, right? So when you're telling the story about this jewelry that you're selling, it should be about you feel passionate about it because you feel passionate about showing up to where you are as an employee, but also this is you. You are. It's not just the brand that you're selling there. You're also selling yourself. Like are you a competent human being, which I'm sure you are? Are you, a good employee? Are you helpful, resourceful, which is exactly what you should be in sales? Are you flexible? Are you quick on your feet kind of things? Are you intelligent? Because in sales, you need all of these skills. These are those soft skills, right? Can you show empathy? If a client comes in and says, I would like to buy this. It's been a very hard time. Especially lately, there's a lot of things been going on. And I would like to buy my wife something, or I'd like to buy myself something, or et cetera, because they want to commemorate something or they whatever, being empathetic with them, showing that you're engaged. You're an empathetic human being. It's not just you're empathetic because you want to make the sale. You're speaking about yourself as well. And that's really important in sales because people connect with that. You come across as authentic. You come across as competent. You come across as somebody that they can trust, and therefore you're building the relationship. So it's the best thing I can say about not sounding salesy is to listen, really listen, and then work on how you are approaching this and how you are presenting yourself. It's number one in creating relationships. People want to create relationships in any context with authentic people that listen to them, make them seem valued and seen. It works anywhere, in a business or in sales, in a store, for example.
This is very precious that you have shared. Can we summarize in 5 words, 5 cues when we get to know that person is ready to buy or he walks in the store? A competitive market, for example, gold souk.
Yes.
You cannot wait over there. You need to grab the opportunity.
Yes, and hence them being very salesy, which that makes sense, yes.
How we can just mix good etiquettes at the same time we can close the sale, or let's say it's 5 cues that we should notice as a client or customer walks in the store.
Sure. So usually when a client comes in and they just want to look around, and then granted, some of those clients convert to actual paying client. They're there for a purpose. Some of them may just be there because, the gold souk example, they may be there just to see, because it's very impressive. It's a very impressive thing. I've lived in Dubai now for going on my 8th year. And I remember a very long time ago when I came to Dubai first, I remember seeing that for the first time and I was like, this is very, very impressive thing. So you'll get some of that as well. But if you walk into, let's just say a store in Dubai Mall, somebody is a jewelry store in Dubai Mall, and somebody walks in, and so clearly they're there because there's interest of some sort. Now, again, this is where the storytelling is really important. So to gauge them I wouldn't say that there are 5 indicators right from the beginning. I think you're going to have to engage the client, and then from engaging them, you're going to get these different reads. So the first one is if the client's coming in and they're looking at things, but actually stopping and pausing. What I would not do in that case is just jump on them right away about that particular product. If you greet every client that comes into the door, regardless of how intent they look, and right from the beginning, and if you say to them, welcome, please use your own words here, but it's wonderful to have you in the store. We're here. My name is. We always want to make a connection with another community. My name is. I'm really happy to help you answer any questions. Even if you just like to look, please be free. And then if you see them starting to, then when you approach them the second time, after they've been looking, so the one is the focus on something. If they've been looking at something and you go over to them, then you start engaging them again. It doesn't seem as salesy because you've already welcomed them. You've already said something. Maybe tell them 1 or 2 things about the piece. Then second point is they show interest in what you're saying. Look at the facial expression and the engagement. If some people are curious, so they'll just be interested in knowing that. But if they're really interested in what they're seeing in front of them and they've just learned something more about it, then that's telling you something. So from there, if you see a lot of engagement with the face, body language, leaning in, more in towards you, or in towards the jewelry piece or the jewelry case, then you can ask them, would you like to try it or would you like to see it? Then you see the facial expressions and the emotions when they're holding the piece, etc. Then at that point, talking about, is there anything else that I can inform you on this? Talk about the craftsmanship of it. Talk about why it's particularly different. If you have any guarantees, this would be the time to put in, without the price. The price should not have been mentioned at this point yet. You want to show that it is of value, that it is a good, without saying the price, that it's a good quality thing, that it's backed by, there's got to be some kind of guarantee. There almost always is some kind of guarantee on the piece of jewelry, and then etc. Something else for me. And then at that point, if they've been trying it on and you see that whole engagement, then at that point you can mention if would they like to know how much it is, et cetera, et cetera. And then at that point, you would see and then see what the reaction is. So that's about building the whole relationship. It's not just about in the beginning, like jumping on them or seeing, because there's no one telltale sign.
Right.
You have some people that have total poker face. You have people, and the thing is, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. I love Dubai for so many different reasons. One is because it throws everybody off that thinks that you can judge a book by its cover. You cannot judge a book by its cover. Period. We should know that. Do we do it? Absolutely. We're human. We do this. Again, like I said, it's a developmental, like human survival thing. Being aware of the fact we do this is the bias I was talking about before. In Dubai, you could have somebody coming into a jewelry store wearing a t-shirt and jeans, very low key, no jewelry whatsoever, nothing, and they go and buy $500,000 worth of jewelry, $1 million, $2 million. I mean, it could, depending on what store you're in, it could be $5 million, it could be anything, right? Like, and you would never know, and you cannot make that assumption. So first, let's just be very aware of that in our mind. And every client that comes in, you greet them as if they could be, and they are valuable to you because they are in your home. You should welcome them because you never know how that's going to go. So then creating that relationship and that communication with the client, regardless, is essential, especially if you are a smaller brand where you really have to sell the piece and the workmanship and the quality and the craftsmanship because you don't have the brand at this point.
That's some really smart brain work, which I'm sure you have expertise for that. That brings me to the next question, that you have been a recipient of Excellence of Conscious Leadership.
Yes.
And that award was given to you in India.
Yes, it was, yes.
That's really interesting. Tell us about it. And what's conscious leadership to begin with?
Sure. So conscious leadership is many of the things that I've been speaking about. It is very much an objective of many of the current successful leaders around the world. It is actually, if you look at the top in any industry, so we'll talk a lot of, even in tech and things like this, the top industry, the real strong leaders, the ones that have sustained over time, they have very high emotional intelligence. It makes them more successful because they have very strong self-awareness, they have very good communication skills, they're very good at reading people, they're very empathetic, and they create good teams, right? So and it goes on from there, but let's just focus on those. So the conscious leadership is where you develop those things. So you develop self-awareness, you develop good communication skills. Your focus is on the team itself, not on you as the individual leader, but that's the strength, the quality, the depth, and the ability of your team. And being conscious. A huge element of that is authenticity, and also investment in self. It's the investment in self, as I mentioned. Relationship starts with you. Starts with the human being inside you, that person, and then everyone else. So that's what conscious leadership is. I received this award in India. I've received actually several awards in India. I'm humbled beyond measure about being recognized for this. It's not something I ever really contemplated, to be honest with you. How this actually started, my company started, was I was doing etiquette before the pandemic, and mainly more traditional etiquette, meaning professional etiquette and social etiquette. Social etiquettes are those table manners, as we've talked about. That's one element of it. So I was focusing mainly on that. I always struggled a little bit with how etiquette is presented because I felt that it was very intimidating for a lot of people. Also, I think people identified it for other people and not for themselves, which for me, that was anytime anybody gets marginalized, it's a problem for me. So I was like, this is not working. I couldn't really put the two together. Like, what's the element that's missing? And this was this emotional intelligence element, because it's something it's like very much my ethos and who I was, but how can I coach this? How can I integrate it? Because I felt it was so important as part of etiquette. Like that, remember I mentioned the consideration part, it's in there, it's already in there. But I think we think about etiquette in these strict rules that are rigid and constricting and are limiting us in some way and excluding us and making some people more superior than others, when it's a tool for success. They're just for anyone, no matter what you're doing. For anyone, anywhere, it's a tool for success. So how I started this in the pandemic was I shifted and I took courses online. I did emotional intelligence courses. I did certifications. I did life coaching certifications, NLP certifications. I just finished my positive psychology certification as well to try to support all of these things. And I also started my Instagram account in the pandemic, and it's a really strong community all over the world, and I feel like it's made that impact. And I think this is partially where this notoriety in India started from, is from the social media, where I started putting out videos in the pandemic to try to make a positive change, and also because I really want to break this idea of that etiquette is only etiquette is just table manners first. Second, that etiquette is, because it's not. And also that etiquette is just for certain people, because it's for everyone, period.
It's for everyone.
It's for everyone. No matter what you're doing. It's for human relationships. It's for everything. So I really wanted that to change. So now that I'm getting acknowledged for the leadership roles in this, it's humbling before anything else, but it's also I'm surprised still, I'm a little awestruck by it, because I can't believe it. I feel like I'm still on this journey of learning. I'm still on this journey of developing that and growing that and hopefully shifting that. So the people are recognizing it. It makes me very emotional. I'm really grateful for it, really. So this particular award was given to me by an association in India. And it was about basically empowering people to work on developing self-awareness and leading in regardless of what industry they're working in. This was actually industry across industry, but often it's in education fields, about how you empower others around you when you're in a management role or in a leadership position, in professional situation, but also in your social network, also in volunteer networks or in anything else you're doing, how you really can leverage your self-awareness, create your authenticity, build empathy within your teams, identify the strengths within your teams and within the people around you, and then support them with the training, many of the trainings that we've been talking about.
You know India inside out. I would like to deviate from the topic.
Please.
Talk about bargain. It's a funny topic.
Yes.
And what was your experience of bargaining in India? Because it's super dramatic.
Yeah. I have to say, I love India. I absolutely love it. In fact, I'm going this week. So I'm there.
Amazing.
I'm there about once a month in India. I've actually been almost everywhere in India. Almost. Not everywhere, because that would take me probably my entire lifetime, which I welcome, by the way. But I've been to many parts of India. I've not been to Kerala yet. This is the only in the eastern part, the northeastern part, Assam, like this area. But otherwise, I've been to most other places, Kashmir. So those three areas that I haven't been to yet. I spend most of my time in Mumbai, sometimes Delhi, and in Udaipur, because I have a client in Udaipur. I'm working with the Maharaja of Udaipur, has school system.
Amazing.
And so I'm working for their office on developing emotional intelligence for their schools, for their students. I am incredibly,
so cool.
I'm honored beyond words at the ability to be able to support some pretty amazing students, I have to say. I'm always so impressed. I'm always so impressed by the people in India first. And I've always loved the country. I've been going there since my first time was 15 years ago was the first time I ever went there. I used to study Indian architecture and art in university as an elective, because I was taking a lot of international studies courses, and this was in the United States education system, we believe in having a diversity of subjects besides your core subject. So I was studying languages and geography and history and government and all those things for my international studies degree in economics. And then I needed to take something else. So I chose these arts of India, temples, all these studying. And I fell in love with it, and the color of everything and the joy of everything. This is the other thing. This is a huge thing about India. And I know we've got off topic here, but I'll try to bring it back. It's about India. There's so much joy in interacting, period. Like in the wedding, so much joy. It's like if anybody does a wedding right, Indians do a wedding there's actual so much joy. Every time I go to an Indian wedding, I think to myself, we really don't do this right in the West, like at all. Like the joy, the color, the expression of happiness that's there, amazing. Also, anytime you go anywhere, the welcoming and being really, the concept of hospitality is amazing as well. So I've been going there for quite some time. And again, I also work primarily in Mumbai doing a lot of things with schools as well there. But I would say my first experience with the bargaining was probably 15 years ago. Actually, I had a soft entrance into it because I don't think that they brought me to like a place where necessarily local, I was in New Delhi. So where they actually local people probably went as often. So I would have to say I probably didn't have the full authentic one. Now I go with my colleague that I mentioned who I adore, and her name is Latika, and she is like pro. I have never seen it, but she enjoys it so much, just like my husband, the same. Like it's really impressive how much she enjoys it. So I would also have to say that they're very gracious. They're very gracious. With Indian people, always are very gracious with me, always very kind, very helpful, very gracious. And I don't think that they lay on the full like bargaining thing so much with me. I think that they see, well, clearly I'm not Indian, as much as I would love to be, I'm not Indian. So I think that they look and they're like, okay, I think that they're going to go easier. And that's why Latika is there, because she will go negotiate everything. And so it's great. So, but I love it. I love everything about it. I love the food stalls. In Mumbai, it's amazing. The street food, the sections they have for that. I love the color everywhere. I love the color, even like women that are selling things on the side of the street. Just the colors of the sari. I will wear a sari as often as I possibly can. Yeah, I wear them all the time. I absolutely love them. So
cool.
Yeah, I love it. I love it there.
I actually wanted to hear the chestnut checkers part of it. Like for example, they quoted you 1,000 and you were saying 200.
Yeah. I don't think I'm terrible at that part. Actually, that's the part as an etiquette coach. And I have to say also the culture that I come from in the United States, as one of the tenets of the culture that I come from, and I'm not saying this is correct or not correct, it's just culturally specific, is that we really don't talk about money. So this is why bartering for me is like very challenging. And this is self-awareness. I know that this is where this is coming from. So when I'm in those situations, I do understand that that's part of the game, and I do understand that they're expecting that, and I'm like so afraid, one, of insulting someone. One, I don't want to insult anybody. Two, the amount that we're talking about here is quite insignificant.
Right.
And everything's relative. Okay, so everything is relative. It depends on what we're talking about here. But if it's like 200, or 2,000 rupees, the difference there it's not 2,000 and 5,000. It's not like a huge amount difference. So I'm not the best at that. So I don't think I would go that low. Like if they said 1,000, I don't think I would go to 200. I would definitely try to like maybe half it at first. But if it's my friend Latika, she'll go for the 200. She's amazing at it. But I love her for that because she's wonderful at negotiating with that for me for business things as well. She's fantastic about it. That's a skill. It's a wonderful skill. But she's also very self-aware. Obviously, she's not going to insult anyone. She's not going to do it in a context where it could be insulting. But yeah, no, I don't. I'm terrible at this. I'm absolutely terrible at it.
Talking about your expertise. So I have this notion that, the majority of the jewelry brands in UAE or GCC,
yes,
particularly are family driven.
Yes.
And if you walk in, you will always see a salesman who's really not that skilled, probably.
Yeah.
Talking specifically about Dubai, because it's such a melting pot of so many nationalities, plus there's a inflow of innumerable tourists.
Yes.
Not always they are at their 100% capacity to welcome them, to understand their requirement.
Yes.
And do you think there's a role of management or as a company owner that they should focus more on this? What's your view on this?
Yeah, thank you. Everyone can benefit from soft skill training of some sort. So the double-edged sword with family-run businesses or family-founding businesses is that either if the founder had a strong self-awareness, consciousness, belief in training, belief in supporting their team, or they somehow found that in the earlier phase of the building before the company enlarged and grew, then usually you'll see it within the culture. Because what we're talking about here is culture. And I'm not talking about Indian culture, American culture, Russian culture in general. This is a corporate culture. Even though it's not a corporation, but it's a corporate culture is what I'm talking about. So either the positive is that it was started from the beginning and therefore it's there. And those companies, they believe in training their teams. And so regardless of where the country that the individual may come from, they've been trained to some level of awareness. Now that probably can always be developed and grown further just because new ideas come forward and there's new methods, and because mainly the client changes. And in Dubai, the client changes a lot. And I'm talking about, in many different ways. Youth, we have many different demographics here. You have the generational things changing. You also have nationality change and in large amounts. And if people think that doesn't matter, it absolutely matters. I don't mean the traditional culture. So like, for example, the Indian culture, which is what we usually had, the European culture, the Arabic culture, the Indian culture. I'm not talking about those cultures. I'm talking about just within those cultures. This absolutely
is more
matters.
Like dynamics of Dubai as a market.
Yeah, as a market. Like it really, you really being very aware of who your client is incredibly important. So even for those small businesses that have interest in, and they've always had interest in training their staff, they always can be uplifted a little bit more. They can always upgrade a little bit, and because you're constantly having to here in Dubai to stay competitive. That's the first, but it's already positive. The negative side, the catch-22 side of a family business with this is that if the founder doesn't have any of that, and they were just, for example, very sales focused versus people development focused. So if they're not so focused in developing their people, which is probably their family members, most of them anyway, or they just think that they're going to follow the line of the business and they just take it, they don't actually develop them in a more holistic manner, then you're not going to have those skills, and then you're going to run into these issues of sales, and you're going to have the negative impact, the 20% negative impact. So what I would say, and unlike corporates, so corporates, you have change of leadership. And with change of leadership, you have a whole lot of things that can come in. It can be very positive. It could be negative. But one thing for sure is there's going to be change. And with the change usually comes some kind of change or shift in training or in growth or the way you approach your staff and your teams and your people. Yeah. So therefore, there's more opportunity for there to be some kind of training going on or some kind of idea that they need to do that. Plus, also in the corporate setting, it's very commonplace to have trainings. It's like it's part of the culture. It exists. Oftentimes, when you have small businesses, they think they intentionally be like, I don't want to be like corporate. I don't want to be corporate. So therefore, they reject all ideas of it. I would say to the small businesses in Dubai, jewelry businesses or any small business, is you don't have to be like a corporate, right, but take the best of what they have there. And one of the best things is the training, is the investment, forget training, investment in the people, in the growth of the people, and making sure that the people are developing and growing and learning so that they can meet the needs of the client. And in the jewelry business, they can actually approach the client in the best way to have those sales, to have the relationship building so that you can continue to grow. So that's the problem with but the challenge with small business owners in the jewelry industry is if that culture wasn't there from the beginning, and it won't be developed. And so therefore it's kind of stagnant, or they really reject behaving like a corporate, and part of it is training. And so think about it, it's just a mindset shift. Think about it differently and ask yourself, do you want the 20% growth? Do you want 95% increase in retention, for example, for across their teams? Or do you want customers to feel more inclined to stay with you because you're creating good customer service? Then think about training for sure, and soft skill training.
Out of curiosity, walk me through an example where you have trained not so bigger organization, but someone who opted for your services and potential challenges that you faced while training them.
Okay, so I'll go with my personal clients on this one, if that's okay. Because in a group situation, at this point, except for my retainer clients for groups where you see development over time, I would say I haven't really had too many concerns with them, which is fantastic. I've really seen positive growth because it's just bringing to awareness of some things and giving some skills. I would say my individual clients are a better reflection of this one. Some challenges that I always face is self-awareness issues. So the client has enough awareness, unless they've been sent to me by their manager, which has happened also, but unless they've been sent, which is rare though. Usually it's C-level, so executive levels that come to me and I work with them in a very discreet way. So that way nobody's aware that they're going through this. I have clients come to me, individual coaching clients that have come to me because they have come from a different culture, and therefore they want to be able to interact more effectively, communication, behavior, etc., with in in an international space. I have clients that have come to me because they have no experience managing people, but their company, which was a lot of tech companies, come to me, and now all of a sudden they're engineers. They are and I love engineers for many different reasons, but the one thing is that they're very aware of their lack of emotional EQ,
Right.
and also their social skills. The thing is, they actually have it. It's just that, like all human beings, we have different tools that are all like different skills that are inlined in our brain. I like to think of it very like linear. Those people in sales, or those people that are CEOs even, but not always, but a lot of them, the people that are engaging with other people, the people that are managers, and again, not always, but the ones that chose to be a manager, they have those skills front, but then the other skills they may not have, like analytical skills, processing skills, they may not have as many, and those are in the back. They're there, but they just, like human beings, we focus on what has been supported around us, what we have interest in, and what comes to us easy, naturally, frankly. That's why. So I have a lot of engineers that have those skills, but they've never felt confident in developing them. Or they're in the back somewhere, but the analytical skills come first, or the theoretical skills or whatever are back, but not the analytical skills are stronger. So they've all of a sudden been placed because they have a tech product that all of a sudden now they're managing like 20 people, or their company just got bought by a larger company and they're required by contract in part of the sales to be able to manage and lead something for X period of time. And now they need the skills to be able to engage with other people, and they really struggle. So they have enough awareness to come to me to say, I need the coaching, which is huge. That's about 60% of it. But then we have to unlock what the limiting beliefs are there. This is the emotional intelligence part. This is the positive psychology. This is a lot of the other things that I work with, where we work with, okay, what exactly is limiting one's ability to achieve or to succeed? Is it an actual existing problem? Is it skills that need to be developed? Is it a limiting belief? Is it perception? I mean, what exactly is going on? So that's always my biggest struggle, always. It doesn't matter which industry, which human being, which country they come from, what gender they are, age, it doesn't matter. That's always the thing. I will tell you that the most confident people that come across as confident, the only reason why they've come across as confident is because they've learned how to identify what those things are, and they've learned tools and tricks to be able to live with them, if you will, and succeed. They've not gotten rid of them. They still exist. We're human beings. They exist within them. But it's just learning that they're there, acknowledging them, and then knowing what to do to overcome them in a way in which you are successful, right? But so about public speaking. So people think that public speaking it is the number one fear of everyone around the world. It's the number one fear, speaking in front of other people. The interesting thing about that is that most people can convey their ideas in a normal setting without any problem. There are people that are very introverted. They struggle, period, regardless. But a lot of people, it's the fear of in front of other people, or when they're the center of attention. So we get to what exactly is driving that fear, and how are you approaching it? So tool-wise, like, because they're very successful, very accurate tools to achieve in public speaking, like tone, pitch, flows, things like this. This is very good. Presence, standing, facial expression. There's all those things, and that's fine. But if you don't deal with what the problem is going on within the mind about how to approach delivering this information, how to structure the information, what exactly are you afraid of? How can you realize that this is only a fear and that it's limiting you? Those kind of things. So that's always my biggest issue, is when I have people come to me and say that they cannot speak in front of people. It's impossible for them. Like, what can I do? And I just can't. I cannot do it. And then they think it's because they're just bad at it. And then we have to basically unravel those fears, address them, come to self-awareness of it, and then develop the tools to approach it, and so that they're successful, which they all are successful. It's just anybody has the ability to do this. Anyone. It's anybody that wants to develop themselves has the 100% ability to do it without question, and they have it all within them. It's just sitting with yourself and unlocking these things, and that can be it is really uncomfortable for everyone. For even somebody like myself who lives this. This is again, like I said, it's my ethos. My friends joke with me. So as somebody that has a life coaching certification, and other certifications, we always have coaches. So I would just like to put that out there. I think like anybody that thinks if you're a coach, please make sure you have a coach. We all need coaches. Like I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but I would imagine they probably have their equivalent as well, because you need it. It's really important. And my life coach always jokes about how I'm always on a journey towards continual growth. Like I just received this positive psychology certification, and that will never stop for me. But is it easy to sit there in myself what could I have done better? What's actually going on with me? What happened there to make it so that I could behave better, communicate better, manage better, lead better? When something doesn't go right, what is this telling me versus this is a failure? Like you have to recommit to this mindset, to this thing, and it's not easy and it's uncomfortable.
It gets a bit over empowering sometimes, but I personally consider it as a blessing that you're able to gauge out what your mind needs, what your body needs, what you need for yourself, for your self-growth. Because as you said in the beginning, that it begins with you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly. It's a huge blessing. It's a huge blessing. If you can shift your mindset from the struggle and the uncomfortableness, I mean, people don't like, the worst thing people to do is to sit within themselves in silence, right? I don't know if you meditate. I meditate every day. It's the best thing I've ever done for myself. I wish I could go back. If we tell ourselves, what could we do? What would we tell our 20-year-old selves or our 15 or our 10?
Right.
I would tell myself that, please start meditating early. First of all, give myself a break. Please, you're way too hard on yourself. That's the first thing. Second thing is the meditation part. If I had started that earlier on a consistent basis, let me put it that way, because I did have it growing up, but to do it like consistently, as in this is a way of living for me, I wish I had done that earlier. But like people sitting in silence with yourself, it's the hardest thing for people. They would rather be like shocked by like electrical like shocks than actually sit in silence, So it's being comfortable with yourself and approaching yourself with grace, with kindness, but with constructive criticism so that you can grow and learn and be better. Not critical, because it's very different. The constructive criticism where you're being gracious with yourself with an objective because you want to learn. So yeah, that's basically what it is. But it's hard. It's not easy. And my clients, trying to get them, it's the most important thing is to get them to get to that place.
Realization.
Yeah, that's always the hardest.
Thank you, Taylor, for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
We are nearly towards the end of our conversation. We spoke about several aspects of etiquettes, let alone the dining etiquettes. I have certain questions which I want you to reframe in a more professional way.
Sure.
It doesn't sound rude, firstly. It gets the job done. Yes. And also it should not make you look like a grumpy person at the organization.
Okay, sure.
So I have like simple questions. I'll begin with first. This is not my work.
Okay. This is not my work. Meaning you don't want to do it, right? This is not in my preview.
Yeah, it's additional to your job role.
Yeah. So this is not my work.
How do we sophisticatedly address
How do you
this?
address that? Okay, so first you acknowledge the request. This is going to continue. This is going to continue through all of these answers. Probably is the most important thing is that it's not what you're saying; it's how you're saying it. So you acknowledge the request. For example, thank you for entrusting me with this or for asking me for this assistance or whatever. Don't say that it's not my work, but just say that this is actually an area that I'm not, this is not an area that I'm trained on or that I don't have experience in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm happy to help you find a solution or to find the right person to do that, because there may be somebody else, or we could work on this together, for example. And then, but thank you again for bringing it to me. What would you like to do? What could be the best way to move this forward? That's the way to approach it. So not denying it, because if you reject it right away, people get defensive and you make a very negative impression on yourself. Right. Am I saying that you should take on somebody else's work? No, but you do need to have the emotional intelligence to gauge when is it that much out of your purview? Is this a one-off thing when somebody's asking you to do it? And what is really the impact? And if you feel that the impact is that they're taking advantage, or this really isn't your work, like you really cannot do it, or this is something that you feel like is going to get into a habit and you need to start to break it, then approaching it in that way where you acknowledge the other human being, you appreciate them, express appreciation for it, you state something like this is unfortunately not something that I'm educated on or I'm trained on or that I have any knowledge of, but I'm happy to find a solution for you or to help you find the right person, or we can partner on this together because maybe they have the knowledge, and that we can hopefully come to it. What would you like to do? So this is what I call it's the Elegance Advisor method, is what we do in our communications, where you thank the person, you acknowledge the human being, you express what you want to express, and then you move on with something you can actually do, not just let the conversation drop. So either you find a solution, or you direct them in a different, or you let them choose what they would like to do.
My team is not following the deadline.
Yes, okay. My team is not following the deadline, and you're the manager. So before you even get into this, always look at your objective. So what is your objective? Is you want your team to follow the timeline. Before you even approach them about it, think about what has been done previously. Were you clear about the timeline? Did you assign, this is the conscious leadership part, did you assign the right things to the right people? Have you done appropriate and constructive follow-up to it? Ask yourself this question. If that's all the case, and you need to actually not be punitive, because that's not constructive, that doesn't serve purpose, but you need to follow up with them because they need to get it together. You bring it up again, it's the same method. So it's the Elegance Advisor method. So you acknowledge them for the work that they've done, and and acknowledge what they have, thanking them. You acknowledge what they have going on, because they may have things going on.
Sure.
You also acknowledge the problem here. This is where you express what's going on, that there is a deadline, that you're concerned about X, Y, and Z, that if anybody needs any assistance, or we need outside assistance to get this done on time, then please let me know. And my door is open, kind of a thing. And then you need to give a measurable deadline at that point. So and then moving on is either the deadline needs to be adjusted slightly, or this deadline will still hold. So please come to me, because we need to make sure this will happen. So it's measurable, and it's moving forward. Yeah. The biggest thing here is also to assess the members of your team and know how you should be approaching each of them. So you can do this in the group setting, where you express, again, thank them, acknowledge them, express that you can express it directly, that there's a concern and the timeline is not being met, but that you understand that maybe there is possibility that something has been miscommunicated, et cetera, but that you are there to give them the resources, give them the support, or they can work outside the box to get it done. But then again, moving on, you set a deadline for when it's going to be due, and then you individually maybe approach some of them and ask them directly one-on-one, because in teams, you will not get people that will communicate to you with what's really going on, because they don't feel confident, or it's the personality type, or because of managerial structures. So maybe you need to approach people one-on-one to really understand what's going on, so you learn from this situation. Moving forward, you're able to manage it better. But it's always important to approach it with the acknowledgement, expressing, and then moving forward method.
So as a mid-level manager, how should I address it more professionally in one sentence?
One sentence. If somebody's late, if they're late, oh my goodness. Okay, in one sentence. It's I appreciate all the work that's been done thus far. Unfortunately, we're behind deadline, or the deadline is fast approaching. Let me know what resources are needed so that we're able to get this done. As a reminder, the deadline will be this day.
Fantastic.
That's it. Yeah.
I noticed my credit has been taken away.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so again, same thing with the mindset. Please approach it with the objective in mind. What do you want to achieve? You want to get the credit, but you also don't want to really set a bad example of self in this situation, right? So it's approaching the person, expressing that, again, acknowledge that the work has been passed through, that the project was really well done, that you had seen that you are not credited for it, and you want to understand why. So always, again, this is like in the sales where you listen more than you talk. Always listen more. If you approach it that you want to know and you're curious about what's going on, versus saying flat out that somebody was trying to do something bad to you, or that you've been, in some way neglected in some way, people get defensive. And the whole idea here is you want this conversation to move towards your objective of getting credit. If not this time, then the next time, or it will not happen again like this, because they know that you're sensitive to it and you're paying attention. So it will not happen again. I'm saying those three different things because depending on the industry, and depending on the company, and depending on the politics in a company, you may not be able to get that choice undone, especially if it's a big corporation. But what you can say is express that happy that it happened, that you were thankful to work on the project. You had noticed that it wasn't credited, so you'd like to understand more about it. Ask questions. Then they'll get talking about it. Then you can say, thank you for the information. I appreciate it. Is there any way that either I can be credited for this, or moving forward to make sure that I am credited for it? So a short version of that is go in with the mindset of reaching the objective. Say, acknowledge that it's a great project, that you were happy to be on it. Ask questions about why you were not credited, like you were interested, that you came to your awareness you're not credited. and then say, moving forward, is it possible in some way that I am credited, or that we can amend this in some way so that I do receive credit because I was very proud, or it was wonderful to work on this and I just would like to make sure that it's noted, that kind of a thing.
Imagine you are a walk-in customer and I'm a retail front.
Yes.
And you ask something and I just say, I don't know about this product. I don't have this product.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so the first thing to do is acknowledge the question, okay? Acknowledge the interest, and then express that you yourself are not aware of this, but that you're able to get an answer to it, or that you're going to try to find an answer to it, or you give something parallel to it, right? It's never just a no. So I'll give an example. I walked into a jewelry store in Dubai, actually I walked into a jewelry store and I was wearing a lot of this jewelry's brand, not intentionally, but it just happened to be everyday jewelry that I wear. So I walked into this store and I walked in and I was looking for something specific. I knew the name, I was looking for it, etc. And they were like, oh, and I say, well, I think maybe it's at their larger store in a different mall. And they were like, oh, maybe, I don't know it, but that kind of a thing. And I was thinking to myself, if I knew that particular store's manager, I would have said, okay, if the salesperson doesn't know, because it's a new product, it happens.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I don't know about it, you say, yes, it's very interesting. It's a beautiful product. I'm not familiar with it as it's very new. However, I will get you that information. You take the client's information, you ask them to wait a moment, go talk to your colleagues, see if your colleagues know. Even if it's a junior person, have your more junior person talk to them if they know about, whoever knows about the product. Make sure you get that client. It's more important to bring that client in to build the relationship, to come across as knowledgeable and helpful, etc. And if you don't have it in your store, you have it in another store, like this example,
right.
Then you assure that they are handled very well in the other store and that you arrange everything for them. This is the client experience. So it's not about, for example, you don't say that you don't know. It's that you acknowledge the question, you say that this is not something that I'm well versed in, or I don't have a lot of knowledge on this. However, I will find a solution for you. Or you offer something else, that's similar or whatever, or you find somebody that can help them, or you find the solution for them. This is the way to do it. You never it's how you say it. It's not what you're saying. It's always how you say it.
Thank you. How do we say in a more professional and sophisticated way, I'm not happy with the promotion?
Yes. Okay. All right. So this one, again, not happy with your promotion. Please, I beg everyone out there to please understand the nature of the promotion, because sometimes, again, we're human. So imagine you want a promotion and the promotion for you equates to financial gain, usually, right? It's normal. That's a very normal thing. So if you don't get the financial gain that you are looking for, take a step. Okay, that's normal. The emotion that's going to come then is probably frustration, anger. There's a whole wide range of emotion. Give yourself some space. Do not react right away. And then give space to be able to process what exactly that promotion means. So maybe you only got a 10% raise, or 15 versus the 20, 25, 30 that you had planned on. But maybe this gives you other benefits that are not so monetarily easily assessed. This could be a lot more vacation. It could be more management opportunities. It could be that you are working more closely with the senior leadership, which means advancement in your career. Think about it a little bit farther. Think about it as, is this going to give me an opportunity to really show myself so that in 1 year, 6 months, a year and 6 months, whatever it is, I can really show myself so that next step, which is a 40% increase in salary, I'll be much more aligned to be able to do that. So think, please, before we even have that conversation, think a little wider about that, because it's not always a monetary answer. So that's kind of like my guidance for anybody having these kind of things. If you've gone through that and you feel that really none of that is where it should be, then again, same process. So do a one-on-one meeting. Don't do it in public with other people around, obviously. That you want to be as elegant about this as possible. And also create a situation in which your objective will be reached, at least in the objective, maybe hopefully getting more of a raise. But if not, at least you'll be heard and you'll understand that's the objective. So do it one-on-one and say, again, acknowledge the gratitude for, the increase in salary and for the more management opportunities or whatever it is that's there. Acknowledge it, and then express your concern, or even express the concern of, I would like to understand the financial increase. Don't even say, like, why wasn't it 30%? Why? Because we don't want people to get defensive before you have as much information as you possibly can. And you want to come across as curious, inquisitive, a good, supportive employee, and trying to be understanding versus, complaining, right? This is, even though you're totally entitled to feel the way you feel, but it's just how you approach it. So then when you're in there, and then they can talk to you about why. Maybe they say it's 15% now, but this is the idea is that we're tracking you for X, Y, and Z. So if we see success in this role, we really plan on promoting you. You will have no idea about that if you walk in saying, this is not high enough, because then they're going to be like, maybe this isn't the right person to be promoting in 6 months, because you don't, in companies, especially larger companies, you don't know what's going on at top levels always. Mid managers, even salespeople, or even executive level, they don't always know what's going on. So if you, in the sense of like long term, they have an idea, but you don't know what may be shifting, or you don't know where you're going to be. So come across as an employee that's conscientious, that's intelligent, that approaches things rationally, logically, and is like a team player about things. So if you walk in with, okay, I just would like to understand better the salary increase, not it should have been higher. They will tell you why, and then they may give you that information. Then you can decide at that point, do I ask for the 5% now, or is this a much bigger deal what they've given me? And so let me not live with it, but let me learn to accept and understand this now as one step for continual growth and to be successful. This is a successful mindset. It's a successful mindset versus short-term gain, which it may not actually be a gain because you may not be able to get those 5-10% more in that conversation. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Taylor, for sharing these amazing nuggets.
Much.
It was a breeze to talk to you.
Thank you.
And I've gained so much on this side of the jewelry industry, which was not much talked about. Yes. Something you would like to conclude with, something you wanted to put it out to all the listeners.
I've spoken so much. I'm wondering if there's anything. I mean, then again, I could speak here for hours. I would say I was just asked recently at an event about what my advice is for the youth. And I think it's actually for anyone. I would say, and I mean, even with my own daughter, so I tell her always about this, as a human being, I say always invest in yourself. So your first investment should be in self. And I don't mean like in the clothing that you're wearing, in the exterior, in the superficial, not because there's anything wrong with that, in the sense of I'm not judging anybody if that's what they're interested in and what they're doing, but really invest in understanding yourself. Knowing yourself, all your behavior, your interactions, it all starts with really understanding what's going on within you. So if you want more joy in your life, if you want more success in your life, you want to be a certain place, people call this a lot of different things. We call it manifestation, you call it, people pray for it, you call it, God's blessings, we call it a lot of different things. I am not here to say which one of those things it is, because there's no way that any person could ever say what that really is. But what I find is, in life, if you really want to be and achieve what you want to achieve, no matter what it is, investing in yourself is the most important thing. And that is investing in understanding and knowing yourself, as hard as that is. To invest and know yourself, to get the training and the learning, to read as much as you possibly, or listen, because some people really don't like books, like to read books, but to listen, audiobooks. Take that time to invest in yourself. Initially, it will be a struggle. Initially, you'll be uncomfortable because it's new. That means you're learning and growing. And then once you do that, it becomes habit. And once it becomes a habit, it becomes an integrated part of who you are. And your growth will be unstoppable in whatever you're doing. So that's my advice, is really invest in self and understanding and knowing self.
Thank you, Taylor, for that wholesome advice.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your time. It
Thank
was
you.
lovely having a chat over Jewellery Pod with you.
Thank you so much. It was so great to be here. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening so well to all my words. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.